Alright, I'm back. I'm here in my messy room. Uh, in this corner we have basically two bookcases. Um, and these books are mostly nonfiction. Um, yeah, I'm not going to preview what's there. I'll just go ahead and start the tour, the bookshelf tour, or the bookshelves tour. Okay, so let me focus in here. Okay, up top here I have Nietzsche by Walter Kaufmann. Kaufmann was one of the earlier translators of Nietzsche. I mean, he does a good job. Maybe he's not the best, but unless you're like a Nietzsche scholar and you speak fluent German, it'll be pretty hard to tell the difference between Kaufmann or somebody like, I forget it, another translator like Schacht. I think, who else is another translator? Anyway, Kaufmann's not bad. It's not a bad way to go. Really accessible. There on the bottom I have some CDs. These are Yiddish. This is from the Sheva Zucker Introduction to Yiddish, Book 1. And these are the accompanying tapes, not CDs actually. So she probably needs to put out some CDs soon. Okay, let's continue here, sorry. This row, I mean not this row, yeah, well this shelf contains some of my philosophy books. This is by far not even close to, I'd say this is about 1/10 of my philosophy books. Yeah, I have like 10 times more. They're stored away in boxes mostly. Anyway, what I do have here, I'll show you. So I'm really into Wittgenstein. It's probably my favorite philosopher, or top three. Wittgenstein's Conception of Philosophy. This is a good explication by K.T. Fan, or K.T. Fan. I recommend that. Let's see if this will stay up here. Okay, so this is one of his two most famous works, the Tractatus Logico Philosophicus, the other being the Philosophical Investigations. This is a German text with an English translation by C.K. Ogden. Ogden, also another good translator. And anytime you do a translation of a philosopher, somebody, in this case, in Wittgenstein, no exception, the philosopher also has to interpret, has to do exegesis on the philosophy. He has to understand, he has to have his take on what Wittgenstein was saying and what his philosophy was for, to have an accurate translation, because it's going to fit. So the better the philosopher, that's going to go in hand towards being a better translator. But both of those Ogden and Fan are both good philosophers, I think. The House Divided, Contemporary Analytic and Continental Philosophy. So there's been for a long time now this it's kind of like a vague distinction between analytic philosophy and continental philosophy. It's not even that there's like a blurry line dividing the two. It's that there's a lot of things that you would think would be continental philosophy. They study in analytic departments, and analytics do a lot of the topics or questions that continentalists do. So but given that, there's still a rough divide that has existed in philosophy departments, and roughly and it's also been a physical divide. Like Europe has done most of the continental work, and like North America, Canada, England too, and Australia, they do analytic. British philosophers are really good analytic philosophers. They write better than I think Americans, for the most part, right? For the most part, but like American philosophers are some are really good writers, like Jaguar Kim, a really good writer, and there's a bunch, and once I find one whose writing I like, I try to like collect his books, because that's the greatest virtue of a philosopher, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, no, the greatest virtue of a philosopher is that he reaches the truth, or gets as close to it as possible. But the way to do that is through arguments. The way to do that is through and through the writing. And so the best virtue of a philosopher, as far as the student is concerned, is clarity. You got to write clearly, and that is always a symptom of like understanding. Anyway, so now that I've got on my little lofty perch here, let me tell you my more all too human reason why I bought this book. I had a coworker who said she was thinking about studying philosophy, getting a master's, but she hadn't studied philosophy in her undergraduate, and I did. So I knew about this divide, and I asked her if she was going to study analytic or continental. And she didn't know about it. So, and I couldn't really articulate it myself, especially since I'd been like at least 15 years removed, or maybe even 20, was it, from college. Anyway, so I bought this book because I heard, and this is C.G. Prado, by the way. I had heard that he has a nice, explanation of the difference. So I bought it so I can explain it to her and share just the page or two that had it. Yeah, because I'm a nice guy, and she had a nice rack. I mean, nice rack. Whoa! Oh, wow! What happened? We dove deeply into my more base human motivations, moral psychology, the cognitive science of morality, intuition, and diversity. I'm never big into this cognitive science stuff. I don't mean to disparage it or to belittle it. And obviously, it's a solid field of study. And when it comes to ethics, I didn't study a lot in college, but not because I didn't find it interesting, but because I thought I should become a better philosopher before I tackle the really important stuff like ethics, right? So I waited, and I think maybe 10 years after college, I started to really formulate my thoughts on ethics. And I am what you would call a moral particularist. A moral particularist. As a matter of fact, let me dig out this Dancy book at the bottom. This is not his ethics book. This is his epistemology book. Introduction to Contemporary Epistemology by Jonathan. Dancy is probably the leading figure of moral particularism. I can't even say it. You can be a different kind of moral particularists, and Dancy's not exactly his views don't exactly line up with mine. But yeah, it's a good entry if you want to study moral particularism. Check out a book by Dancy. I have one, maybe two, but they're not going to be on the shelves today. Yeah, and I came to my view, away from I came to my view without having read Dancy, before I even heard of Dancy. But anyway, next, another interest of mine in philosophy, this almost fell off from its cover, is epistemological disjunctivism. Epistemology is one of my interests. So epistemology, metaphysics, and philosophy of language are my three main interests. I wish I were better at logic, even mathematical logic. I wish I were better at philosophy of science. Yeah. Anyway, so I can't really explain disjunctivism. It's really hard. It's really tough to understand, and I don't feel confident breaking it down in simple terms because I probably don't have a solid enough grasp of it. But I'm reading. This is Duncan Pritchard, by the way. Where is his name? There he is. Pritchard's a nice writer. I have another view on disjunctivism because it never hurts to get another perspective when you're really confused. Matthew Soteru. Okay, sorry if I mispronounced that name. Sorry, Matthew. Because we're buddies. We're drinking buddies. And we just call each other by our first names. Okay, my arm's getting tired. In the back there, I have a bunch of language CDs from different programs like Asimil, Living Languages, Colloquial French, Hugo. I don't think I have CDs from Hugo, but Hugo's another company. I forget the other companies. It's been a while since I studied any language. Not that it ever lasts long. That's what she said. The Dream of Reason. This is Anthony Gottlieb. This is more geared towards the layman, and it's good. It's good stuff. He's a good writer, and he summarizes, philosophical movements really well. It's a surprisingly good read. And this is another one of his. So the other one was from this one is from the Greeks to the Renaissance, and this is from the Enlightenment to modern philosophy, basically. The Rise of Modern Philosophy by Anthony Gottlieb. I haven't read this, but I'm looking forward to reading it. Okay. My arm. This next book, this moral philosophy psychology book, I got when I was, I took a couple of, I was in grad school. I was in grad school for philosophy. It was at a low tier graduate program, basically because I had taken 5 years off from my bachelor's, and I went to a good school, so I could have gone to, I would say, a pretty good PhD program directly from my undergraduate years. But I didn't. I took time off. I got a job. I got married. I got divorced. Yeah, so that's the minor break in between my bachelor's and trying to go to grad school again. So anyway, so I thought I should probably just get an MA first to make myself seem a little bit more serious of a student. But it didn't work out. Life. Anyway, this is one of the books I had for my graduate program. The Neuroscience of Morality, Emotion, Brain Disorders, and Development. Again, I'm not really big on cognitive science when it comes to ethics. Okay. Contemporary Debates in Epistemology. This is edited by Matthias Stayup, John Turry, and Ernest Sosa. Ernest Sosa is a big name. I really don't know the other guys. I'm assuming they're guys. I think that's a safe assumption. Matthias, definitely. Epistemic luck. I think, so this is Duncan Pritchard again. But the topic of epistemic luck, there was a famous article. I think it was Thomas Nagel. That sounds vaguely right. Thomas Nagel put out a famous moral luck. He called it moral luck, not epistemic luck. But it's, yeah. So moral luck is a famous article in philosophy. I want to say it's by Nagel. Anyway. Yeah, so this is Epistemic Luck by Duncan Pritchard. Where's gravity in this picture? I failed to see gravity. Anyway, I like the cover. And not because I'm some kind of perv. Okay, that's it. That's for my philosophy books. So I'm going to stop this so I can, if I need to edit or if I need to refilm something, I can have a clean break. All right, see you on the next shelf. All right, second shelf. There's one philosophy straggler here. The Philosophy of Existentialism by Gabriel Marcel. Okay, let's put it aside. This bookshelf here has kind of a hodgepodge of stuff, but mainly it doesn't have my Black Studies stuff. I took it off. I wanted to put it together. So this is kind of like history and biography. You'll see. So the first one is Dan Jones's Plantagenets. The warrior kings and queens who made England. Okay. It's supposed to be a good book. I haven't read it. More history stuff. The Spoils of Time. History of the World from Earliest Times to the 20th Century by C.V. Wedgwood. I like the cover. Don't ask me who it is. I don't know faces. I don't know names. The Portrait of a Lady. Henry James. That I knew. Henry James, to me, is top 3 authors in American history. Michael Grant, reading in the classical historians, right? Herodotus, Thucydides, I guess Homer would count, and others. How to read them, what they had to say. The Oregon Trail by Mr. Rinker Buck. I like the cover. The Rinker Buck is a hell of a name. Okay. Yeah, I don't want to read that. This is just a blurb. It's not a subtitle, so I don't want to read it. Biography on Edmund Wilson, A Life in Literature by Louis Dabney. Edmund Wilson, obviously a man of letters, an essayist, had a lot to say on various topics. Very good writer, very good thinker, and a good writer. No, I said that. Yeah. I can't say I agree with everything he has to say, and usually I don't agree with their politics, but there's a lot to appreciate there. So you got to read Edmund Wilson, I think. If you like essays, read Wilson. Pilgrim in the Ruins. This is a story about Alfred, The Age of Walker Percy by Che Tolson. I think. No, I don't want to guess. Okay, so this is just the biography of Walker Percy. I should know more about Walker Percy than I do, but I don't. This is William F. Buckley Jr., right? One of the champions of conservatism. This is Miles Gone By, and it says a literary biography. I kind of like literary biographies. Sometimes they're really insightful into the author's writings and thinking. Okay. This is kind of it's not out of place. It's one of these books that I pick up because the topic seems like just remote from anything else that I've read. And this is that Greece might still be free. The Philhellenes in the War of Independence by William S. Clare. Yeah, so I know nothing about this topic, so I picked it up. Like, the title was catchy, the picture was catchy, and the price was right. So one day when I get the itch, I'll check it out. The collected stories of Louis, I want to say Auchincloss. Okay. This is by James Booth. This is a biography on Philip Larkin, Life, Art, and Love. Great poet, good thinker, but as with all poets, for me, not all poets, I take that back. With a lot of poets, especially ones that are like very, very well read. Like they know their history, they know their Bible, they know their mythology, they know their, yeah, the references, and of course they know other literary figures of their time or before their time. Just the references are hard to catch, right? Especially and also the way they phrase things, and especially vocabulary sometimes is not vocabulary you can look up, but yeah, if you've ever read like especially those elegiac poems or elegiac, the long poems, right? The big like 10-page, 20-page poems. Yeah, with all the allusions and references to things that I've never heard of or read or knew very little about. Yeah, the poems are hard to like understand. But I think it's worthwhile, right? It's worthwhile. Like if what's holding you back is education, then probably worthwhile to get educated, and then you'll understand those poems. The Clocks of Columbus. This is a biography of James Thurber, one of my favorite authors of humor. I like his style. I would say Thurber and Bierbaum are my two favorite authors when it comes to humor. Okay. Oh, this is by Charles Holmes, by the way. This is a pretty good biography with Malice Towards None on the life of Abraham Lincoln by Stephen Oates. There's a better one and a shorter one, better and shorter, right? By Charnwood, Charn Wood. You might want to check out. Eventually, it'll be on one of these videos, but I don't know where exactly. The Skeptic, A Life of H.L. Mencken, right? The prolific, polemic H.L. Mencken. Terry Teashout. Mencken's another one, kind of like Edmund Wilson, who's got a lot to offer. But I really like the thing. I won't keep saying it. There's going to be a lot of authors whose just politics I disagree with, and it's a kind of like a sour note for me, because it's a damn shame that they could be so wrong about something so important. And yes, this is just my own perspective, right? And it's my perspective, not even as like someone as well read as they were. Nevertheless, it is what it is. So, but I got nothing but I would recommend reading Mencken. Read Mencken. Read a bunch of Mencken. Read as much Mencken as you can. And trust me, he wrote enough to last you a lifetime. Okay, I'll continue. My videography skills are not the best here, but America's Counter-Revolution, the Constitution Revisited. This is by Sheldon Richman. Let's see if I have this correct. The argument in this book is that before the Declaration of Independence, there was a political movement going about, and I think in large part it was about. And this is kind of my own history, bringing it into this book. This is not exactly what's stated in the book. It's just because of the freedom that the colonists enjoyed, right? The freedom the colonists enjoyed in running their own colonies, their own towns, right? And little by little, they started to like to resent the crown's legislature. They resented the taxes imposed upon them. They definitely resented the army, the British Army, being sent to American land. Not that it was called America then. Anyway, so there was a certain political movement, and it was kind of encapsulated in the Declaration of Independence. That movement, or that philosophical view, was kind of hijacked, and kind of appropriated for a more big government movement by Alexander Hamilton and others, right? And you'll read that in the Federalist and Anti-Federalist papers. Anyway, that's kind of the argument that the Declaration of Independence, um, the Constitution of the United States, kind of like breaks away from what we were trying to accomplish, or what motivated the Declaration of Independence. I'm mumbling today. I always do, but today it seems kind of worse. Okay, I'm going to continue and then maybe stop again at the end of the next shelf. Okay, the next shelf is kind of like classics, or like classic literature stuff, maybe the Western canon stuff, or just some, maybe not, even if it's not Western canon, just some really good books, some really good books that I would recommend. The Journey to the End of the Night by Céline. Céline is one of my favorite French authors. Like, I don't know if I put Céline, I think Céline has a better writing style than Camus, but Camus was probably a little bit deeper, right, author. But I enjoy Céline. I'd recommend reading Céline. George Orwell, The Champion, the warrior against totalitarianism. Yeah, I think if you're an American, you do very well to read George Orwell and understand what's going on, especially if you see what's going on with the Democratic Party, with the far left these days, Antifa, just hijacking, individual rights. They're increasing the government. They're increasing welfare programs. They're increasing, like, look at all the pork they stuffed to the coronavirus bill, right? That's working its way towards Big Brother. That's working its way towards a nanny state, right? Anyway, read Orwell. Read Orwell. Nikos Kazantzakis, Zorba the Greek, a classic. I read this so long ago. I can't remember the story, but yeah, it is. It's classic. Here you go, Camus, The Fall. What can I say? I don't need to say anything. Read Camus. D.H. Lawrence, Sons and Lovers. I don't know. I can't say I really like. No, I take that back. Lawrence is good. Maybe just not one of my favorites. That's it. That's as deep as it's gonna get today. Now, Nathaniel Hawthorne I like, and Scarlet Letter is a good book. This is one of the few, I'd say, good books that are still assigned reading in high schools. Books like The Great Gatsby, I think, are like terrible. To Kill a Mockingbird, terrible. Anything by Toni Morrison that they assign in schools is terrible. Yeah, there's other stuff like that list of like books that high school students are generally assigned. I would scratch off like 2/3 of that list. Okay, here we go. Here's the man, the inimitable Max Beerbohm, Zuleika Dobson. Right, look at that tall drink of water. And this is illustrated. Anyway, I recommend Beerbohm. He does his own caricatures, kind of like Thurber does, and he's a wit. He's a funny guy. Okay. I haven't read Nostromo yet. I've been meaning to, but I have it, right? And that's all this video is about, just showing you what I have. Geoffrey Chaucer, The Canterbury Tales, classic in the Western canon, I'd say. The Master and Margarita by Bulgakov, Mikhail Bulgakov. Misha Bulgakov. I haven't read this book. I've tried on several occasions to read this book, and I can never get past the first chapter. I don't know what it is. It's just, I don't like it. I don't like the writing. I don't like how the story's unfolding, and I have to drop it. And that's kind of like how I am. Like, unless I'm compelled to read it for some class or some paper I must write, and if I don't enjoy the reading, I'm going to put it down. There's just too many books to read that have good writing. I remember that happened to me with The Great Gatsby. I couldn't read The Great Gatsby for the longest time, and then like years went by until I finally like was forced to read it. And then I hated it. I hated it. Yeah, I hated it. I can't identify with Jay Gatsby. I can't identify with a guy who's like, his whole personality, his whole life is shaped because he fell in love with some 16-year-old white little debutante, right, with perky tits. Like, yeah, okay, I can see I could do a lot of things for a you know, I can for like I can do a lot of things for a girl, right? Even ones that I like fell in love with, but for it to shape my whole life, right? For me to like turn criminal so I can become rich, buy a mansion, live next to her and her husband, and then act like a prepubescent boy around her. Like, yeah, that's not gonna happen, right? And like, how do you like cheer that? How do you look up to that? Like, I can't relate. Like, you know, I'm a grown man. Yeah, I don't know how he's a hero to anybody. I don't know how he can be a protagonist, leading protagonist. Raymond Carver, Cathedral. Good stuff. Honoré de Balzac, The Black Sheep. Balzac. I don't know what to say about Balzac. I want to say he's an acquired taste, but I've liked him from the get go, so it wasn't really an acquired taste for me. But I think for other people, they really don't get into Balzac. It's kind of a shame. I think it's a good writer, good author, good stories. Thackeray's Vanity Fair. This is considered one of the top American novels. I haven't read it. Shame on me. Can't say anything. Hermann Hesse. I have read Hesse. I have read all my Hesse books. This is the Magister Ludi, which is the Master of the Games in Latin. The English translation is the Glassbead Game. Anyway, much like many Hesse books, this is the story of a man or a young boy who's going through some shit, and then he has some life experiences, and then he kind of grows into manhood, right? It's like a rite of passage, and that's no different from Narcissus and Goldman. Narcissus and Goldman's kind of the same idea, right? A young boy, yeah, his maturity and his development into manhood. Okay, that's not the best summation, but that's gonna have to do today. Dostoevsky, The Possessed. What can you say? I think you have to read Dostoevsky. Like, I don't know how you can knock Dostoevsky off your like list of reading. Like, who would deserve to be higher than Dostoevsky? More. Anna Karenina by Tolstoy. Tolstoy's got several books that are worth reading. This book I have not read, even though it looks like I've read it. I got it used, and it kind of sat on my shelves for a long time. George Orwell, The Road to Wigan Pier. More Orwell. I've said enough about Orwell. Read Orwell. Vladimir Nabokov, one of my favorite authors, because of his style, not necessarily because of the books he wrote. I mean, I like the books he writes. I like the stories he tells, but his style is like incredible, right? It's just so fluid and descriptive and so easy. Like, yeah. If you want to be a good writer, read Nabokov. Read Nabokov. This is Lolita. So this book has obviously been like I think it's been like banned in several countries, and it's not really offered as reading anymore in high schools. The takeaway from the story, the general takeaway from the story, is that because this is a story about a 40-year-old man, Humbert, who kind of like, well, not kind of, he has an affair with a 12-year-old girl. Yeah, I think she's 12, right? Lolita is 12. And what makes Nabokov like really fascinating to read here, and especially in Lolita, and again, this is the general takeaway, is that you start to sympathize with Humbert, right? You start to understand why he's doing what he's doing, and you start to abide, like, in a sense, with his actions, and then you catch yourself and you're like, holy cow, this guy is like a monster, right? He's sleeping with a 12-year-old girl. He's kind of like also like mentally bullying a 12-year-old girl. Okay, that's the general takeaway. That's not my takeaway. Okay, at the risk of sounding perverse and demented, and I'm gonna give you another take. And it's not necessarily something that I completely subscribe to, but I think it's also a legitimate take. The legitimate take is that Lolita as a 12-year-old, has real seductive powers, right? She moves her body a certain way. She knows how to flirt. She knows how to be coy. And she's hyper-sexualized, hyper-sensualized. And when a person like Humbert, just like your, humdrum, ordinary guy, maybe life's not going so great. Maybe, maybe he's been rejected by other women. Maybe he's divorced. Maybe he's not he wasn't the most popular guy in school. Maybe he's always, and kind of like Jay Gatsby, maybe he missed out on something he truly desired when he was younger, right? Like not everybody gets to sleep with the prom queen. Anyway, when somebody like that comes along into her life, he could be easily seduced. He can be easily enraptured with her and find himself doing what Humbert did. So the other take is that Humbert is not a monster. Humbert is just a man, and a very common type of man. Yes, the caution is there because we live in a society where that kind of relationship is frowned upon. Although let's not forget that kind of relationship is frowned upon more so now than it used to be in the past, right? People married 12-year-olds, people married 14-year-olds, and we're talking about older men, right? It wasn't seen like it is seen today. So, and I don't know what's more what corresponds more to human nature, right? Like if we remove a lot of the mores and the values and the culture of modernity, what is it normal for 40-year-old men to be attracted to 12, 15-year-old girls, right? And yeah, so anyway, this is starting to sound even creepier than I intended, but that's the second view. The second view is that, and you're gonna have to search, especially men, you men are gonna have to search in your heart of hearts. Have you ever looked at a young girl? I mean, it doesn't have to be 12. It could be 15, 16, maybe even 17, 18, whatever. And you're 40s. You're in your 40s or 50s. And she was sexually attractive to you. She was sexually appealing to you. Yeah, so if the answer is in the affirmative, which doesn't mean you follow through, right? It doesn't mean you follow through on a relationship with her. It doesn't mean you follow through having sex with her. That's the whole point, right? You can have thoughts, but you don't act on them, right? That's the whole point of having morals. That's the whole point of having a conscience. But insofar as he found her attractive and appealing, I think that's a perfectly human male reaction. Maybe not for all males, but I think for a lot of males. And then obviously some people end up acting on those feelings and desires. Okay, that's the other take. So I'll never show my face. I got family, I got nieces, I don't want them to they're not ready for this kind of discussion. It's not that I feel like I'm saying something ultimately very perverted or wrong. It's just these are hard things to own up to, right? So anyway, I'm offering it to you for your consideration as honest adults. If you have any integrity, then you'll answer honestly for yourselves. We don't need to have this discussion. And I don't want to have a discussion in the comment section about it either. The stories of Nabokov, right? Okay, read Nabokov. Just for literary style, read Nabokov. Even if you don't want to read Lolita, read Nabokov. James Boswell, The Life of Samuel Johnson. So Boswell is not one of the few, but yeah, maybe one of the few biographers who can do justice to his author, to his what do we call it? To the person he's doing a biography on. And Samuel Johnson was a giant, right? Samuel Johnson was a giant. But Boswell was no slouch. So this is one of the great biographies of all time. Okay, 4 more books and I can shut this off before my computer overheats. My camera. Celine, another Celine. Guignol's Band. I haven't read Guignol's Band yet. Okay, this is my third attempt to finish this bookshelf here. The North China Lover by Marguerite Duras. She also put out another short version of this same story called The Lover. And that was the title for the movie with a Jane March. And Jane March? Yeah, March. Not March. Jane March. Jane March in the movie, when she made it, she had to be either 16, maybe 18. Because there was some there was nudity and there was sexual content. Anyway, I had the biggest crush on Jane March in that movie. From that movie, she had a beautiful face. She was young, but she had like this beautiful face. Her mouth was incredible, big eyes, and yeah, in the movie she was just like a little bit of a seductress herself. Um, okay, that's the end of my little story there. I'm starting to not come off in the best light in this video, but whatever. Next, The Magician of Lublin, Isaac Bashevis Singer. I think Isaac Bashevis Singer also put out books in Yiddish. There have been a lot of really good Yiddish authors. A lot of books that are just better in Yiddish than they are in English. And I've always meant to, like, not always meant to, that sounds too serious. I've always wished that I could read them, that I can read them in Yiddish, in their original, right? Other than the fact that the Yiddish is a beautiful language, and it's a damn shame that because of the Holocaust, it's almost like a dying language now. It's still spoken by like ultra Orthodox Jews, the Hasidim in America, the Hasidim in Israel. But it used to be everywhere, right? The diaspora was everywhere. It was in Spain, Germany, Poland, Russia, Lithuania, Czechoslovakia, Italy, France, yeah, Romania, Moldova. Oh, I don't know about Moldova. Anyway, Bashevis Singer, read some Singer. I really doubt you would not or you would not like his stuff. That's a weird way of phrasing. I suspect you'll like his stuff. There we go. George Gissing, The Netherworld. This is a good book. This is a good story. And Gissing, like, I don't know if he was my entryway into British authors, but he opened my eyes that I've been missing out a lot by not reading British authors. Yeah, there's just a lot of literature from England that we have. I think in America we don't really like, you know, read too much unless that's your specialty, right? Unless you're a major in major in English. Anyway, read Gissing. I'm starting to ramble here. Okay, I'm gonna shut this off and then I'm gonna go to the next shelf just in case I need to edit.